While you can't control your experiences, you can control your explanations. Martin Seligman, from the book Learned Optimism: How to Control Your Mind and Your Life. I'm Stephen Middleton, coming to you from the Possibility Action Network. Our core values include I am, I can, and I will. I am Possibility Man. Today, I want to share on the theme, A Life of Meaning, the Four Pillars. What I want to share today comes from the field of positive psychologists, where investigators, scholars, and teachers from around the world are coming up with explanations of how individuals can live a meaningful life, a life of optimism, a life of joy, and a life of hope. I encountered this field called positive psychology relatively recently. The first person to tell me about it was my son, Dr. Eric Douglas Middleton, and he mentioned that there's this field called positive psychology. I didn't think anything of it at the time. But most recently, I've dug a little deeper into this area, and I've discovered that some of the writings of these teachers and scholars address a meaningful life, how to add meaning to our lives. And I want to just boil this down for you today and identify four pillars that they talked about. The first pillar that they address is called belonging. Belonging, that individuals can belong to something bigger than themselves. One of these teachers told the story about some hunters in Africa. And these hunters had gone out together and they were hunting for wildlife. Their hunt was unsuccessful. But when they came home, they were singing a song. They were expressing joy. And someone who was with them asked them, look, you did not have a successful hunt, but you are singing, you are expressing joy. Why is that? And one of the hunters looked at him and said to him, we did not capture an animal together. That is, they were together. They were belonging in this group as they went out together. They enjoyed the hunt. So belonging is the first pillar in this life of meaning that we also crave. Belonging. You know, when you look at athletic teams, be it in football, baseball, basketball, soccer, or whatever, you know, these individuals enjoy playing together. The most successful teams are the ones that enjoy playing together. You can find this in a spiritual community, individuals who have camaraderie, who like being around each other, who are committed to the same kinds of truths that everyone else in the group, you know, believes in. They can have that as well. And of course, the list goes on. A gang of hunters, you know, anywhere in the world that got to get together, being hunting for deer, a group of fishermen, or playing golf. This whole notion of belonging is the first pillar in a life of meaning, because it's really about relationships. A group of business associates, a life of meaning. The second pillar is purpose. That is, to live a life with purpose. And by here we're talking about a life of contribution, a life of where you contribute something beyond yourself. You're contributing to society. You're contributing to your group. You're contributing to your family. You're contributing to your neighbors. A life of purpose. We all want purpose in our lives, which is the second pillar under a life of meaning. Well, how do we find purpose? one could say, you know something, I recognize that some of the elderly in my community have trouble, meeting their expenses at the end of the month when they buy their medication. That if they're on Medicare and Medicaid, that's not enough for them to buy their medicines. Someone could say, I'm going to organize a nonprofit. I'm going to raise funds, and I am going to help the individuals, at least in the county where I live, have enough resources to purchase their medication. This would be purpose added to this person's life. This could be a life of purpose, which is the second pillar of a meaningful life. The third pillar of living a meaningful life is transcendence. Transcendence. Now, this could be a couple of things, and I want to express it in at least two ways. I would love to hear from you, to hear what you think about my suggestion. One way to look at transcendence is to consider the profundity of it all, of life. Michael Singer likes to say that we are living on a planet that's spinning around in space and none of us are falling off of it. Boy, that's profound. Or you can say, we are living on a planet where water, we call it rain, falls from the air to water our crops that we plant into the ground. That is profound. Or we could say transcendence could also mean that we live on a planet where we can go to a river or lake and we can throw a line into the river or lake, and chances are we can catch a fish which we could use for food. That is profound. Or we can plant seeds in the ground and expect crops to grow that we can use for food. That too is profound. If we cut our finger and if we keep it clean, the finger will seal itself. That is profound. Just recognizing the profound environment that we're in is enough to add meaning to our life, to let us know that we do not walk alone. Transcendence to me also means that in life you begin to recognize that things come up in life, in everybody's life. In everybody's life. We label these things good and bad, but maybe a better way of labeling them is that it's just like the rain. It's just like winter. It's just like summer. It's just something else that happens in the course of life that's neither good nor bad. But if it's something that has adversity, that's adverse to us, this gives us this opportunity then to look at transcendence in another way. It allows us to go beyond, to go above, to go around that obstacle, that situation that's in our lives. I was talking to a friend of mine recently who was telling me about growing up. And this friend said that, some individual that she knew treated her very badly. It was enough to perhaps make some people quit on life. It was enough for some people to have bitterness toward another human being because that human being didn't treat them well 50 years ago. Now, here's where we get caught up. Here's where we can get caught up. We think that to forgive ourselves and to give someone else that we endorse the behavior of the other party. But that's not what we're talking about. What happened 50 years ago is what I'm learning happened 50 years ago. It's over. It's finished. There's nothing that can be done about it. So it's not the event, no matter how painful it was 50 years ago, that can bother a person 50 years later. You know what can bother a person 50 years later? It's the person. It's what they tell themselves about an event 50 years ago that they do not even have an accurate recollection of that event. Oh, I'm telling you, one of these days, I want to share about the past. I'm going to call it the graveyard of the past, because that's all it is. It's a graveyard. And whenever you go there, especially at night, in the wee hours of the night, you can only feel discomfort. You can only feel uncomfortable because your inner guidance system tells you that you've gone in a direction that just doesn't support your body system and your emotional system. The fourth pillar that I want to share with you today is storytelling, especially stories that are uplifting, not stories that pull us down, but stories that gives you life, that enrich you. When I was a boy growing up in the country back in the day, before I was 10 years old, I remember the stories that one of my uncles would tell me. And I'm telling you, he was an individual who had a bunch of obstacles in his life, physical obstacles. He never did have a formal education, but he became a very successful man. But the story that he told me was when he was a young man looking for work in the country. He was barely 5 feet tall, if that, maybe 4'7" would be more accurate. And he said that he went into the woods, where sawmills were cutting down trees, and they were taking these trees and loading them onto the truck, and they had to go into the woods to get these jobs. And he said that he was out there with a bunch of other men looking for work. And that the foreman who was going to do the hiring got on the tailgate of the truck and stood out and looked at the sea of men in the crowd. And there he was not 5 feet tall, I assure you. But then he said, when these big guys, these country guys, these grits-eating men tried to push him out of the way because they wanted the foreman to spot them, he said that he planted his feet and he held his ground. And then the foreman looked out. As the foreman looked out into the sea of the men, the foreman said, I want to hire that man. And my uncle then had a story that he shared with me. And he told other stories to me, like, take what you got and make what you want. Look, it's 60 years ago, and I am still touched by the stories that my uncle 60 years ago told me. I told some of my children about these stories while they were growing up. And my daughter, about 3 or 4 weeks ago, in fact, it was on the 4th of July, told me that when she worked with students, with kids who were in distress, that she shared some of the stories that my uncle had told me and that I had shared with them. The fourth pillar under living a meaningful life then is storytelling. Sharing stories of uplift, sharing stories of hope. I'm excited about what I've discovered in the area of positive psychology. And because of the internet, and because of Zoom, and because of what we've learned since COVID hit us back in 2018, 2019, we understand now that we can do a lot of work via video. I think often about our young people. Our young people, some of them are living with the depression and anxiety. Some are living feeling bullied by people at school or even people in their community who do not know them. Our young people are in distress. And if you were to research it, you'll find that there is a significant percentage of young people who are choosing suicide to take their lives out of the world because of the strain that they experience in the world. The area of positive psychology, there are programs, there are courses, there are workshops all over the world where any individual who has a high-speed internet connection can avail themselves to these resources. Look, we can do more than what we're doing to help our children. We can do more than what we're doing to help ourselves. I wish that I had known about this, 50 years ago. I didn't. But I'm grateful that I'm learning about this today. And that's why I wanted to share this in this media today. I'm Stephen Middleton, coming to you from the Possibility Action Network. Our core values include I am, I can, and I will. I am Possibility Man. Until next time, good day